And I'm back, and I'm just finishing up an install on a Senville heat pump. This is a 28,000 BTU heat pump, and it's got 3 indoor heads. So I've just hooked this up in the last week or so. I'm getting in the final stages here. I didn't show you every step, but I can show you what I've done, and I can show you the inside units in a minute. What I've done here is I've had a vacuum test on the system. So this is a manifold system. There's 2 valves here. These are the masters that hold the refrigerant back in the system. So these are shut, and that's how it comes from the factory. Those are shut. And then there's a manifold here for the high side and the low side. And so basically what you got to do to run a vacuum on this, some people don't know this, is that you got to open all these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 under these caps. There's an Allen head, and you've got to open these. You got to make sure these are shut, though. You don't open those, or you'll lose your refrigerant. But open all these on the manifold, and then just vacuum one port here. And what it'll do is it'll vacuum them all. Now, I had this on vacuum for about 4 or 5 days because we had to wait for another part. But we had a cable that we didn't have, so we had to order it. So I had this, this was down in the vacuum here. We ran the vacuum pump for about a half an hour the other day, and it held the vacuum down in here. So I just left it isolated. And what I did to confirm that the vacuum was holding was I had just taken out off one of these caps and released the Schrader valve. And when I released the Schrader valve, it left the vacuum. It came up out of the vacuum. Okay, so it shows me that all these ports are connected to here. Okay, so that's just another confirmation, another way to do it. Now, some of the Senville heat pumps you'll get don't have masters up here. So then you would have to vacuum each individual line set. So you would vacuum out one side of here, and then one side of this one, and one side of that one. Because each of these sets goes to an indoor unit, right? So one of the heads are here, one of the heads are there, one of the heads are here. So you would just vacuum out one side of it, and that would get that loop. You would do that with these valves closed, mind you. These would be closed, those would be closed, those would be closed. You just vacuum the line set out, and you don't open the lines, because on the ones that don't have on the systems that don't have the masters up here, the refrigerant is right up to the backs of these, okay? But on the ones that have a manifold here at the top, you've got isolation valves up here that keep the refrigerant in the system, and nothing down here, just empty manifolds. Actually, there's a little bit of nitrogen charge in the manifold. Hooked into it, there was a little bit of release, just a little of nitrogen that comes out. Anyway, so bottom line is, we've got this, we've proved the system is airtight. We're gonna run another test. I got the vacuum pump here, I'll show you hooking that up. And we've got a core remover tool in here that I've used. And I'll show you in behind here, we got a valve shut on it here. And here's your Schrader valve. See right there? There it is there. And what happens is you can pull a deeper vacuum or a faster vacuum, they say, by taking the core out of here. So this goes in. So basically you would just, you open this valve and you push this in, and it grabs onto the, push it onto the top of the Schrader valve until you feel it, and then you back it out, and then you pull it out, okay? Then you close this valve, and then you confirm that you've got it out here. Sometimes it doesn't grab it, so there it is, okay? And then when you go to put it in, once your vacuum is complete, what you can do is open this up, put it in, and screw in the Schrader valve like that. Now, some people recommend that what you do is you actually let a little bit of refrigerant, just a little crack, into the manifold to bring it out of a vacuum before you put the Schrader valve in. That way you're not going to introduce any air into the system. You will be putting the Schrader valve in while the system's under a little bit of a positive pressure. And that's the recommended way to do it. So anyway, we got the connections here. These are the control cables that come from each unit. So this one comes from upstairs. There's one in the bedroom upstairs. I'll show you that. And there's one in the dining room. There's one in the living room on this house. So Each of them have a control cable. They come through, and there's a numerical sequence for each of them. So they've got, if you look down here, bottom one is A, second one is B, third one is C, and then so it's all labeled in here. So for C, so A is in there, B and C. So you've got your 3 connections for each of these communication cables plus a ground. And there's a schematic right on the cover that tells you how they go. And it's the same orientation on the inside. So when you get to the heads inside, it'll tell you if you're on, number 1, number 2, or number 3 terminal. And you just have to match them up to whatever head it is. So you want to, so basically the living room is C. So right here, living room is C. And that's the one here that goes to the living room over here. And we've got that in there. So we've got these, I didn't show you every step, but I can show you what I have done. So this is just a hole through the wall here into the living room. And we've got this line cover set over it. So this is one of the cables we had to order here. It's called an electrical whip. And it goes from the disconnect box, and it takes power up to the unit. And it's got the stranded cable in it. Okay, household wiring is solid copper, but if you're going to have something that's flexible, it's got to be stranded cable, so they can take the the vibrations and the flexibility that's required for this type of application. Okay, so what the reason was we returned the other one was they sent the wrong one. They sent one with number 10 wire, AWG number 10. And this requires number 8 because this is a 40 amp double pole circuit. So 40 amp is number 8, 30 amp would be number 10, and 20 amp would be 12 gauge and so on. So the 40 amp requires a number 8 wire, and that's right from the panel, right from the breaker, and all the way through here, through the disconnect, and out through the whip. So I'm going to hook that up. And the other cable we ordered was a communication cable, the one we needed to join into the one for the dining room, because the run that comes with these sets from the factory is 16 feet long, and we were maybe about 12 feet short getting across the basement and out here. So we had to join it. Anyway, so okay, we're gonna get this put in. Okay, so I'm in the basement and I'm right below the dining room, and this came down through the dining room wall. I'll show you that in a minute. Anyway, so here's your refrigerant lines, and this is your communication cable, and this is the drain. The drain's gonna go out here and drain outside. And this communication cable, I'll show you here, this comes along here, this pipe, and it only comes as far as here. And we had to get another pipe and join it here. So I put a pipe joiner in here the other day. I can show you what that fitting looks like. I've already got it all insulated, but I joined it here. And our cable only comes as far as here, so we've got to splice it and join it to that one that's hooked out to the heat pump. Okay, so here's the cable coming from the unit in the dining room. And here's the cable coming from the unit outside. Okay, now right away I noticed we have the same gauge of wire. We have 14 gauge wire, but the replacement wire is different colors. So I'm going to have to take note of what we hook to where, so we make sure that the color coding is right when we hook up the machine outside. Okay. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm just going to put a piece of heat shrink tubing. Then I'm just going to back splice these together. I'm just going to put them together and twist them, and then heat shrink over them. And then I'll tape the whole assembly, and I'll show you that before I tape it. And some people would solder them, but I've had good luck just back splicing them and putting heat shrink on them to hold them together. So that's, it's not going to be under any tension here either. This is going to be, maintained up here in a little bit of a loop, just tucked in there and zip tied. So it'll be fine. Okay, so I got a little bit of heat shrink cut here. Just this heat shrink tubing you can buy. Just going to slide it over. Okay, push it back on the black one. And then, so what are we going to call black on the other side? I think we'll go black with brown, maybe. Let's do that. Because they are different, completely different colors. I'm just back splicing like this. and give them a good hard twist. That. Okay. Twisted both ways. Then I'm just going to slide that heat shrink over the connection like that. So it's about halfway. And then I like to do them one at a time so they don't slip. And I'm going to heat that up and yeah, shrink that down. Okay. So you just got to be careful of what's above you when you're using a flame. You could use a heat gun too, probably safer. But if you're careful with the flame, you'll be okay. Okay, so I've got those all spliced and heat shrunk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of that with my smartphone. Little snapshot, you know, it tells the whole story. Because I'm going to tape this up now. I'm going to tape that together and we'll tuck it up out of the way. And trim these ends off. Okay, so I'm going to put a vacuum test on this machine. Just going to take our vacuum and charging hose off of here, and then we're going to put it on top of the vacuum pump. Okay, so that's on the vacuum pump there. So we'll leave these shut for now. Okay, I'm going to start the vacuum pump. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch this gauge right here. Okay, let's turn this on. Now we're going to open this low side gauge. And that should drop down into a vacuum. See it go there? Okay, so we're going to let that run about half an hour. And then what we'll do is we'll shut this valve. And what that valve does is shuts the port between the vacuum hose and this valve. It just shuts it off there, shuts off that hose, but it leaves this line open to the gauge, which is open to the system, okay? So that way we'll be able to monitor the vacuum. We already know it held for about 4 days, I think. So it's got no leaks, but we'll do a double check on it here. And that's what this is for. Okay, so I'm at the panel and I've got this is number 8 wire and it's 8.3. All I need is 8.2, so the neutral is not going to be used because there's 2 hots in here. So the black and the red are going to be the hots. Neutral's not going to get used. Now, I know what I'm doing. I'm not suggesting that you do this yourself, so hire an electrician to do any electrical work, okay? So, okay, just don't do what I do, do what I say. Okay, we're going to turn the power off in the house here. Okay, we're going to take the dead front off the bottom of this panel, and then we're going to verify that the power is actually off. You got to remember that when the breaker's off, you're still live from there up. It just turns off these bars down in the bottom. So, yeah, you just don't go in a panel thinking that you've isolated the power, because even sometimes these breakers are faulty and you won't have it turned off. Or you can make a mistake and touch something like a metal tool up in here and it's live up in there. So yeah, it's just too dangerous to go in if you don't know what you're doing. That's why they have electricians. Okay, dead front off. Okay, we're good. Here. Okay. Okay, we'll have enough. Gotta go to the ground bar. I gotta go to there, so that should be plenty. Okay, let's tighten that down. Okay, that's good. Now, this will get tucked up here. I'm going to put a stapling mat up there in a minute. Okay, going to separate our leads. All right. Okay, so the neutral's just going to get blanked off. I'm going to put a moret on it. These two are going to get stripped back. It's too hot, so it's a 240 volt double pole circuit. So the first thing we're going to do, what I always do, is put my ground. Put my ground to the bus bar first. So I see a grounding bus down there, so I'm going to just lead this down and put a little 90 in that. And I'm going to come out, feed it in there. And we're good. And that's grounded well to the box. Let's see, nice and tight, yeah. We have a double pole 40 stab lock. Okay. So we're going to put that right in here. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to bring these down and bring them back up. Put them in like that. Same with that one, down and back up. And bring them in like that. So I'll strip those off. Okay, so I've stripped those back and I've got those in the breaker. Okay, nice and snug. I've put a little loop in them as they come in the panel, down and up into the breaker. So just double check. I don't want to go over tight, but I like them nice and snug. Good. Okay. All right, that's good. Now we're just going to blank off this neutral because we're not going to use it. It's not used on either end. It's just that it was easier to buy 8.3 instead of 8.2. That was available, so that's okay. It's all right not to use it, just as long as we blank it. Okay, there it is. All right, that's good. Everything else is looking good in there. It's right there, so it's the next two up from what was available. So it's these two here. Okay. Now one last look in here. Everything looks good. The headlight, I think, has decided to call it quits. Actually pretty good. Oh yeah, that looks good. That brightens things up. Now, I think we're good on that breaker spot. Okay, so other than just stapling up this cable, that's it for the panel. Okay, so this has been running about a half an hour. You see the vacuum down in here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to shut this valve and it's going to shut off this hose. But it leaves this hose open to the system, okay? So if that climbs, there's a leak in the system. Close that off. Okay, now the vacuum pump's not going anywhere, so we can turn that off. And we'll take note of where that needle is. See, that's down in a vacuum. And we'll let that sit for a while. Okay, so we've got all the electrical hooked up. All these communication wires are hooked up. The power through the disconnect is hooked up. And I've just wired the breaker in, and the breaker is still off inside. We had a vacuum on these lines for about 4 days, and it held a vacuum. And we released that this morning through one of the ports on the manifold, proving that it's all common. And we've closed that, and we ran another vacuum for, we ran the pump for about a half an hour, And then this is held vacuum now again for over an hour. And it's right down in there. So what we're going to do, there's a procedure here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to crack a little refrigerant into the manifold. Just enough to bring it out of a vacuum. And then we're going to close it off. And we're going to put our Schrader valve back in that valve. Okay, so I'm just going to take that cap off. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack that ever so gently, just a little bit of refrigerant into the lines, and bring that out of a vacuum. Just like that. And I'm going to turn it off. Now I've isolated it again, so now there's a bit of pressure in the system. We'll feel it here when we go to put this in. So we're going to open this valve. We're going to put our Schrader valve in. We're going to screw it all the way in until it's bottomed out, okay? And then I'm going to bring that off the Schrader valve. I'm going to close that valve, and now I'm going to check and make sure that I don't have the Schrader valve still here. Okay, it's not there, okay? It's been installed. Okay. Now, I'm just going to crack this line and break, just going to bleed out the pressure that's between the Schrader valve and here. These are still shut, okay? It would be just a little puff here. Okay. Now we can take this off of here. Okay, and we can confirm that our Schrader valve is there. You can see it. All right, now we're going to put that cap on there. Let's put our cap over here. All right, and snug that down. Okay, the other ones are all open because they were open for the vacuum test, so we know these are all open. Now all that's left to do is open the refrigerant out into the system. So we're going to open this again now. We'll hear it go into the system. Hear it running. Let it go slow. And we'll go take this one off. We'll open this one too. Now, I'm going to open those wide open. Just out until they stop. Don't try and force them. Just like that. All right. Okay, out till it stops. Good. I'm going to put this cap on here. We'll tighten that. And same with this one. Make sure this is all the way open. Just back it out till it stops gently. Okay. That's it. All right. And we're going to put the cap on there. Okay, so we're ready to put the cover on here and turn the power on.